Our next speaker is Ilona Posner. She is a user experience consultant and educator with more than 25 years of experience in the area of human-computer interaction. She has worked for such clients as AMD, Autodesk, Apple, Bell, most recently UX research teams at Rogers and CIBC. Great tenure. She's also an experienced educator. She's been teaching for over 2 decades at the University of Toronto, OCAD, and the Canadian Film Centre's Media Lab. I think we can say she knows her stuff. We can establish that. So without further ado, let's welcome Ilona Posner up here. She's going to speak about the impact for better product experiences.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here. How's my audio? Is it working? Can I talk? Can you all hear me? Great. I'm here to share with you the secrets of great user experience and how to build better products by introducing a metaphor which has been alluded to earlier today. And actually, this is a really fantastic conference. How many of you were here yesterday at the opening? Okay, not too many. But there were some really inspiring moments, including Al Gore talking on stage, and I mean, it's just really fantastic. And to be part of it, I'm really excited to be here at Connected. Thank you for hosting me and for having me. So as the introduction stated, I have done work in this space for actually, I lied about the 25, it's more like 30 years. Yeah, but I started as a very young undergrad, say I was 2 years old in computer science at the University of Toronto, and I was programming, and I realized that actually the part of the interface, you know, the front end, is the most important concept. Because if we don't get that right, the rest of it doesn't need to exist at all. And that was a huge realization for somebody who was studying computer science. And that turned my career. And I was really fortunate 15 years later to come back and teach the same class that turned me. And actually tonight I have to run out of here to teach a class, similar class to a bunch of engineers at the University of Toronto. I've been thinking that, you know, if I just focus on consulting, my reach is much smaller. This way I get to impact and influence a much larger audience. And this is why I'm hoping to do here today with this simple concept that has evolved out of the years of my experience. It's actually also the title of a book I'm working on. It's called Keyhole Impact. And the concept here is that we all have a different perspective. I think some of the previous speakers already alluded to the same concept. And that is, but actually this goes even further. By our biology, by our anatomy, we're actually limited in the amount of information our processors can handle. We have a lot more inputs to our brains than we can actually process. And so we have to necessarily focus on things because it's really important if there's like a tiger in the bush that you're not worried about your nose itching. And if I said to you, you probably didn't hear the sound of the fans, but they're going at the same time as I'm speaking, but maybe you were focusing on my conversation instead of maybe your emails. So we always have to make a selection and a choice about what we're going to focus on. And that, as designers, is really critical. How do we create the experiences? How do we put the right things into the keyhole that our customers will notice so that they know what to do next? How do we create those interfaces and those experiences? How do we make the simple? Yes, it's very important to be simple, but it's really hard because we have all this functional specs and everything else we have to execute. And how do we get the people to push just the right button? What does the button look like? And so on. So I normally teach this over 13 weeks times 3 to 6 hours a week. So to do a 10-minute is a real challenge, but I'm going to try to go really, really fast. And Eli's looking at me. Okay. So, button. I want to start with a case study, a really interesting example that demonstrates, if we had more time, I'd show you the whole video. But here's the situation. In the year 2003, you could buy a pop with your cell phone in Japan. iMode was this revolutionary technology which allowed people to do that. And so IDEO, this design company that's very well known in this space, sent researchers to see what that was like. And this is what they discovered. They actually, I will show you a track of all the steps that they had to go through. So they start off at 0 minutes there to trying to buy a drink with their cell phone. They go through that running, those numbers are actually the minutes as they go by. At 17 minutes, they had to do tech support call. They're buying a pop with their cell phone. At 17 minutes, they're doing a tech support call with an additional cell phone because, of course, you're looking at your phone, which is your primary device that you're trying to use at the moment. At 25 minutes, they're asked for a cash deposit. 25 minutes into buying a pop. Okay, how many pops do you think were sold in that mode? Except maybe to these researchers. Now, 35 minutes it took for them to complete the task. This is a real product in the world. This was not a beta. This is not a lab. So my question is, how did that happen? My question is, how many industries were involved in producing this product that was out in the world, in the store, that they could just try to use? How many of the people in those industries, imagine how many teams were staying up all night, and the collaboration and the coordination that had to happen between all those payment companies, the mobile companies, the soft drinks, the manufacturers of the machines. All those people had to work really, really hard for all the deadlines to meet to make this product go into the world. How many of them would be proud to show this to their mother? So, and I explain this with the fact that everybody in that team had a keyhole that they were looking through really, really intensely, but nobody thought about the user. They had their requirements, they had the technological constraints. They knew this was possible. And I have worked on many products where we were trying to get that, first to market lead that's gonna get us that award, but actually nobody ever wants to use the product. How do we avoid that? So, I heard a previous speaker, Satish, talk about you are not the user. I have a great example for this. How many of you have not seen the arrow in the FedEx logo? Raise your hand if you've not seen the arrow in the FedEx logo, please. Okay, keep looking, and you put your hand down only if you see the arrow in the FedEx logo. This is not a trick. Keep looking at that logo. There is an arrow in the FedEx logo. We still have people looking at it going, what is she talking about? Keep looking at the arrow. Now, I'm going to push the button. Can you see the arrow? Okay, now you've seen the arrow, you can never not see it. As a designer, you are putting the arrow in the logo. As a user, you're looking at that logo day in and day out and not seeing the arrow and not even realizing that you're missing anything, because you're not, because it doesn't matter. In your context, the arrow does not exist. And so this is what happens in the interfaces and the products we design. And how many times that happens to you every day, and how many examples, how many decks can I build with experiences that are, a lot of them are quite negative. So, another true story, do you remember this logo? Do you remember this? Okay, this was a product, this was an advertising campaign, we're talking about Steak Sizzle. So Sizzle, $300 million, half of the world production of CDs went to this campaign. To get people online, this is around the year 2000, AOL is trying to get world dominance of internet access. So, there was a problem. We were called in to try to solve the problem. 97% drop off in the registration page. What's on that page? Anybody venture? This is an interactive presentation, even though it's only 10 minutes. But that's how my classes go too. I make them participate. You might think so. Seriously, what was on the registration page that had 97% of users rejecting? Not email address? Okay, credit card. Okay, they're saying free, 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 right? And yet they're asking for a credit card, which is a lot like us going on a blind date. I don't even know your name, you don't know my name, and I go, can I just hold your wallet? Well, really, trust me. Don't you trust me? We're going on a date. We're going to get to know each other, right? We're going to have a great relationship in the future, maybe. Because you can't assume there's trust. You have to build trust. You have to build trust by showing value. And AOL made a really big mistake here because they thought they were going to get away with it. Now, we step into the other side. Imagine how the decision was made, right? Imagine, oh, we just want to roll them over so there's no interruption in service. It's going to be really, really easy. We'll just get the credit card. Year 2000, nobody's putting their credit card online. This is like, this internet is a new thing. We're not quite ready to go there. They try to fix the problem. Can you see the solution? Can you notice the solution? See the sticker? Yes, there's a sticker. Do you think the sticker worked? Now, at my house, we had about 10 of these. Every time you opened a magazine or your mailbox, things fell out like this. And when the 11th one arrived, do you think we noticed the sticker? You have one chance to make a first impression. So all those people who talk about minimum viable products, great concept, except if you blow your first impression with your target audience, your second impression may never happen. So, really interesting concept. So this is how we get to user experience. It is, oh my God, I'm running out of time. I'm gonna have to just stop. User experience is everything. Every moment that you touch, from your advertising campaigns and the promises you make to all the way through to support and upgrades. Hopefully you upgrade. And there's one really, really big change in the past 10 years that we have had to deal with, and companies all have to deal with, and that's the little thing in the middle called the share button. Now, in the year 2000, we did not have reviews of AOL. Now, all your advertising and all your goodwill can be undone with a really bad review and a tweet. And this is something that has changed the control, and the scale has shifted. And now we have our consumers, and if we can't address it and help them with their needs, there are many, many others who can and can do a better job. And how do we actually get there? Well, oh yes, I was going to show you this other thing, which is an example of another project, but okay, really, really quickly. This was a huh? Really? Oh, thank you. Wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay. The bell's not coming, the hook's not coming off. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. So, in the year 2000, around there, last century, right? I worked on a project where one of our service providers was trying to get people to get on the internet. And so in that time, you had this kind of device, and then you had to put this kind of thing in it, and then you got on this thing called the internet. This is the box that arrived at your house. When you opened the box, all these things fell out, and you had to figure out what to do with it. Now, our job was to make this a better experience. So what did we do? We went to people's homes with a video camera for 2 hours. We paid them. We said, if you get the box, don't open it. We want to get there and see your whole experience. And we looked at things like, did they have to actually move the furniture because the cable was too short? Did they know the difference between the phone cable and the Ethernet cable? Because they're actually, one fits into the other hole. And we stood there while they called tech support to understand how to actually complete the task. So this was the outcome. We were really proud because before they had 7 pieces of paper. Now we put these giant numbers on so you couldn't possibly miss it, and we try to organize it. Fabulous. We finished this really proudly, showed it off to my mother. My brother got this a month later. Instead of the 1, 2, 3, he had the 1 blue 3. Okay? What is this blue? How did the blue happen? We had this beautiful 2 on this other manual. Well, turns out that the company had to go with the cheapest modem. And the cheapest modem came with whatever instructions the manual came with. And of course, nobody considered that maybe, they had to repackage it, or there was an issue with customers actually trying to use the device. And so soon after they had another sizzle reference, there was a rebranding campaign, and they came out with blue. Everything was blue now. So now we have this beautiful, new, shiny, glossy designs. And remember those steps, those numbers we're trying to help people? If you look really hard, they are here. See? Like exactly where you put your hand if you were right-handed. So you completely would always cover that, and you would completely miss that point. So this was an example of an exercise of trying to do user experience, but somehow missing the point. And this is the problem. This is the human-centered design process. I like the symmetry of the 5 Ds. There's many different ways of looking at it. Design thinking have their own way, 5 steps. So we start with discover. We put the people in the middle, our users, our customers. We are not the customer, remember? And we try to understand what their needs are. Before that, we have all our constraints and requirements from the business and technical. And we try to build the product by iterating around the users. How often do we go to touch the users? When do we actually introduce them in our cycle, in our product cycle? Well, I talk about it as you can wear pie on your face in public or in private. Those are your options. Because all technology is usability tested unless it never gets used, right? And it's only a question of when, by whom, and at what cost. So we have lots of methods we could use at each one of those stages, and I'm not going to belabor you with this. If you took my 36-hour course, you can get that. We have lots of iteration. We never get the design right the first time. We have to make small increments, and we get closer and closer to better design. You've all probably experienced that. And look at the cost differential. The difference of making changes early on when we actually understand what the requirements are is really cheap compared to when it's all out in the world and you're trying to get people to update. People who don't want to update their software because they don't trust that the functionality that they love is going to be there, like me. So we can do this. And so how do we do that in organizations? There's many different ideas of where user experience should sit. And one of them is it should sit under engineering. There was a conversation, does product trump? Where should things go? Should tech have its own vertical, or should they report in? So user experience sometimes sits under engineering, but sometimes it can sit under marketing or product management. Or it sometimes even gets as high as the C level. You know, there's the customer experience at the C level as well. But here's the thing. Everybody in the organization, no matter what their role, are making decisions every day that affect the user experience without even knowing it. And that's a serious problem. And that is why I'm suggesting that the keyhole, you know, this understanding that we all have a really different perspective based on where we come from, what our technical exposure, what our cultural exposure, all of those things make our keyholes different. By necessity, we all have different keyholes. We never see the whole problem. And this is why introducing everybody to this concept and actually forcing everyone to see other perspectives. Alan Kay said, a point of view is worth 80 points of IQ. Each of us has only one point of view. We need all those extra points to make our products more intelligent and more viable. And there's actually recommendations about how much time we should spend exposed to the users. Actually, I say we should all feel the user's pain. Everybody in the company should experience the users. And actually, the recommendations, the CEO level should spend 5 hours a year actually sitting with users and seeing how the products are used. And of course, user experience people and researchers should be spending a lot more hours, and that's what in the hundreds of hours. And that's what good companies do who care about their users and care about the needs. And so I will wrap up with the voyage of discovery is not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. And on that, I want to give you the keyhole. And that's... One more favor I'd like to ask. After I do this talk, I'm considering all of you now have been exposed to the keyhole and you're now part of the Keyhole Brothership. So, or the guild. I would like to take a picture of everybody in this room doing the keyhole salute, which goes like this. So when you're in a meeting and people are going off tangent because they're missing the keyhole, you can just do this, and it's just shortcut to all the conversations that think we just discussed. So can I have you all do the keyhole, and I will take a picture of you, and I'll add that to my collection of photos of the Guild of Keyholes. And hold on, I go around the room. I should do a panorama keyhole. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.